Speaking, this is my program, isn't it? Can we do what I want here?
Relatively, yes. I mean, depends on,
Well, I got the letter from Steven about the things that we can't do on the internet. He sent that out some time back, but we can basically do what I want in the direction of the program.
Okay, well, we'll see where this goes.
Or we'll go to SmackDown now and get that out of the way.
That's out of the question. That's one of the things Steven said we can't talk about. It causes too many people to fall asleep.
Hey, if there was anything that a lawyer would have to adjudicate as to whether you could speak on, it would be this AEW pay-per-view we're about to talk about here shortly.
Well, this SmackDown is the final SmackDown on Fox.
Yes, it was. And they said that. And they said, we'll see you next week on the USA Network. I didn't think. I wonder if they just did that. And I'm surprised Fox didn't bleep them. That used to be a no-no. You'd have to say, check us out on another network or another channel, or the competition was never mentioned in the old days.
Remember when David Letterman left late night to become the host of the CBS, the Late Show with David Letterman against the Tonight Show? He said, I'll see you on September 9th at 11:30. He couldn't even say what channel he was going to be on.
They wouldn't let you do that. Well, apparently Fox is, are they still in business in some kind of way with anybody? Everybody, 5 people own everything in the world now. So maybe they're getting some favors.
Are they in business with Endeavor? That's really what it is. It's not just WWE, it's UFC and anything else that Endeavor owns a piece of.
Yeah, there you go. And if Endeavor doesn't own part of it, then Fox owns part of it. Or WBD or another one of the giant conglomerates. You never know who to trust anymore. I'll tell you who you can trust. Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare. That's who you can trust. And I said this earlier. This is the goddamn, it's like they're in Edmonton, Alberta. It's the biggest house I've ever seen in Edmonton, fucking Alberta, Canada. Jesus Christ. But it's like the 10 or 12,000 people or however many thousands of people that are in these arenas are paid members of the studio audience. Brian, can you remember, even in the Attitude Era, did the people react to everybody as wholeheartedly and as full-throatedly exactly as they're supposed to than the WWE fans are doing right now? Can you remember?
WWE is getting reactions right now that are akin to like a bunch of bands touring together in the 60s. Like the stars are coming to town for this one night. We have to go see them and react to them like they're stars. AEW, not to make this a comparison right now, but in terms of the fan base, we just saw them have a pretty nice house in Chicago. Those fans didn't move. They sat there. And whenever you saw them, that's one of the things that really sticks out is the difference in reactions between those fans and WWE fans who are eating everything up like I've never seen before.
Well, and the AEW fan, they're down to the car wreck segment of the population. They just come to, if you pull out a table, they scream, "One more table!" Or if you set somebody on fire, throw some more gas on him. Or what? They just want to see this bullshit, right? They don't care about any of these people. And nobody's a star. They're going to see a bunch of fucking idiots kill each other. But the WWE shows, they're looking at and now everybody said, oh, Cornette's a WWE, what do they call it? Stan? The kids say Stan, or he's on the WWE side. No, I'm saying this is ridiculous because they're doing as little as possible that you possibly can do to get this. This is not the best wrestling I've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination. And it's kind of boring in spots, but goddamn, these fans of this, many of them who have never lived through another era to seen it done any better, are loving this shit. And everybody's over. And like I said, what a fucking house in Edmonton, Alberta. We talk about they still can't match the record set in the territory days. Stu Hart didn't have a fucking building this size to begin with and never had that many people. I wonder if any of the Harts were there to see, like, what the fuck. Remember that time I told you Lawler was in Evansville for Raw and like 98 or whatever, and they sold out the big building, 12,000 people. Remember when he came out for commentary?
No.
They're doing Raw, and it's the height of the Monday Night Wars, and they're at Roberts Stadium, not the old Evansville Coliseum. We're on every Wednesday night, 52 weeks a year for years, the Memphis territory, to have between 500 and 1,200 people in that building. And that was the Wednesday night show, and it was what it was, right? There's 12,000 at Roberts Stadium, and they introduce Lawler as the color guy with JR, and he comes out on the stage, and they fucking, because it's Lawler. He was on TV there for 20 years. And they give him a standing ovation. And they're fucking screaming, yeah. And he looked around from the stage at those 12,000 people, and he said, where were all you son of a bitches when I ran this town every Wednesday night?
That's funny.
So anyway, it's got to be the same thing up there with the Hart family. But
yeah, Bruce Hart usually shows up and they turn him away.
And, oh, come on. That's what they mean by a turn away crowd up there?
No, I'm kidding.
But anyway, they so they acknowledged, or Cody rather, came out. And, he signs the kids' signs on the way, and he shakes hands, and he's smiling, and he brings everybody into the entrance, and they chant Cody, and they cheer, and etc. And as I said, that's when he acknowledged Kevin Owens, the match with him, and he acknowledged Michael Cole, who's back on SmackDown now. I guess they're switching announcers for their various new networks. And then all he had to do was say, well, basically, I'm probably going to be interrupted pretty soon, so I'd like to send an invitation out to the Bloodline. And they just play the music. God, and the music plays, and Solo comes out with all three of his henchmen. And Solo gets in the ring and has to face off with Cody. The other three stay on the floor, Tonga Loa, and, of course, the star of our show, Jacob Fatu. And as soon as Solo speaks, the people's, we want Roman. We want Roman. And they're already calling the next goddamn big main event match. So Solo asks if Cody's ready to defend against him, and he had him beat at SummerSlam if it wasn't for Roman Reigns, and they chanted again. And Cody said, well, we got a season premiere next week, and the fans are chanting, we want Roman. And I saw somebody on Twitter going, oh, they chanted for Roman over Cody. Well, it's not bad for Cody. It's good for business. Cody already beat Solo, right, on the pay-per-view. But the people want to see Roman kick the shit out of Solo because that's the personal issue. So it's not like Cody is not over. It's that's where they want the people's mind to go. It's goddamn mass hypnosis. And Cody just continued because at first he teased he was offering a shot to Solo because he was putting him over. Well, you've done this and you've done that. Move over, Solo. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Jacob Fatu. So he's trying to start the seeds of sowing dissension or whatever. And also it gets Jacob Fatu over because even Cody has to admit that this guy's been unstoppable. But then Jacob steps up onto Cody says, why don't you step up? And Jacob gets onto the ring apron and the fans are chanting, step up, step up. What the fuck? It's like they're goddamn paid members of the cast. And then Solo stares at Jacob, and Jacob screams, I love you. You are my tribal chief. And he gets down on the floor for now. And then Cody cuts the promo to promote next week the debut of SmackDown on USA. They're going to rematch the pay-per-view with Solo and Cody. And it's, that's for free television. And, then Solo says, well, we don't need to wait till next week. And as they're menacing Cody, here comes the Street Profits, Ciampa, and Same Face. Well, they had an 8-man tag to sell. But Nick Aldis jumps in the middle of it and says, slow down, everybody. Tonight's tag team or main event is going to be an 8-man tag team match. And next week, it's going to be Cody and Solo in a cage. And this was like 20 fucking minutes to say 3 minutes worth of shit. And the people are screaming and yelling and jumping up and down and chanting for every future match they need to pay for. It's brilliant.
It was also the last thing you needed to see on this episode. Once those tag teams came out, that was a sign that, you know what, maybe I could leave before the main event. I kind of know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And honest, well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, two things. One, the reaction to Jacob Fatu and the way he was presented here very early on in his run with Cody Rhodes bypassing Solo to bring him up there just to create a little dissension, like you said, although eventually Jacob, as always, acquiesced to what the tribal chief wants. But the reaction and the fact that they teased this, are they already teasing a future Solo babyface run? Not Solo, excuse me. Jacob Fatu babyface run?
Well, think about they're teasing a lot of stuff. It could, depending on what happens from here, and it'll be way far down the line, but it could go either way. But the point is, the people now know that there has been treachery in the bloodline before, right? Remember, we got a whole new bloodline now. And so when a guy is as impressive and makes an impression, makes an impact like Jacob Fatu, and by design they have allowed him to do that and is because of the talent he has for doing that, the fans already want to see him in the ring probably more than the rest of them, even including Solo, because of he's wild, right? So they're eventually going to start liking him, except when he does shit to the people they really like and blah, blah, blah. But if you can start dropping little hints now like that, there's going to be jealousy in the bloodline again. And then people will start watching for that. And then it can add intrigue. So, eventually, Solo doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities because they put, and I don't mean in real life, I mean as a heel. They put him in a position where he's the prick that usurped Roman Reigns' throne, but he's also not a spectacular worker that the people want to cheer when he does a wild thing. So he would probably be the heel. Jacob Fatu could potentially be a babyface, but that would be, again, it'd be ridiculous to do that for a year or more because you haven't even had the first match with Solo and the last guy he fucked around, right?
So that's why I was surprised they did this here, because I feel like it almost puts it in the fans' mind now that they should start getting behind Jacob Fatu a little bit.
Well, but it also puts Jacob Fatu over, that Cody is willing to acknowledge that he has been, what's in front of his eyes, he's been impressive, he's been awesome, he's been dominant. Yes. He's been the one that's been propping Solo up.
But if Jacob Fatu had jumped on the apron and immediately said, no, my tribal chief, not me, or not even jumped on the apron, not moved, but he reacted to Cody, which sets up in my eyes, it sets up the way a fan would think going forward.
Yes.
And like I said, it's early on in the run, and you're saying that they shouldn't do it for a while. I was surprised that they did it here.
I like it because they don't have to do anything with it for a while, but there can always be the subtle undertones, is what I'm saying. And
the undertones.
And it helps get Jacob Fatu over, is because normally the top superstar baby-faces are talking about the henchmen like flunkies and like, you got your back up there, but no, he's the guy that's being focused on. It sets him apart. And as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be a big star in that fucking company for a while, because he has the element of danger that a lot of people are missing these days.
No, and I hate to compare him to a murderer, but it's reminiscent of Jimmy Snuka, who came in as a crazy heel.
Yeah.
And the fans couldn't help but start cheering for him.
And Snuka had a better body, but was not, I mean, for his time, he was incredible with what he could do. But Jacob Fatu is a better athlete than Jimmy Snuka was. Snuka had the body. And I mean, you know, I saw Snuka before the WWF. I saw him, you know, for Crockett when they came to Cincinnati. And obviously video from the Carolinas, he moved at that size like a fucking cat. He was amazing. When they'd throw him out of the ring, he wouldn't even grab the ropes. He'd just kind of, and he was barefoot too, landing on concrete floors, but he'd turn and let both of his arms kind of break the momentum a little bit as he went through the second and top rope and end up with his feet under him just enough. And you go, shit. But Jacob can do shit that Snuka couldn't dream of doing.
One more question before we move on. And again, apologies for Jim's noise.
For my gardeners, my lawnmowers.
You brought up that Cody Rhodes signed a sign. He signed an autograph on a sign on the way out to the ring. He's not the first guy to do this in recent weeks. Not the first time he's done it. I saw Randy Orton do it the other day, of all people.
Yeah.
This is a new thing under the new management. What do you think of now in 2024 fans signing autographs, or specifically one autograph to one fan on the way to the ring, almost to just show that you're doing it, but you're showing that for a reason? What do you think of it?
Well, I never heard Vince say, God damn it, Pat, or God damn it, Lanza, whatever, you know, tell him to stop signing autographs on the way to the ring. I just think that it's who, if it wasn't Cody that started doing it, who was the first one lately that started doing it? Maybe they just saw, oh, that looks good. Maybe some other guy said, I'll start doing it too. I don't know that there was any edict banning it, but especially when they've got that long aisleway to walk down and all those people are happy and screaming and jumping up and down and taking pictures and shaking the signs. If you go through all of them and ignore them, you're kind of a prick. So the baby faces that are really over have mastered the deal of, okay, I'm going to slap hands for 15 feet on this side, and then I'm going to go across and shake a couple. There's a kid with a pen. I'll grab it. You're keeping it fresh instead of just a long walk where you're ignoring these people that love you. And it brings everybody in, and people that are watching on TV go, well, wow, if I went, maybe he'd sign my sign or whatever. And the kid's like, yeah, Daddy, take me. It's Jarrett had the fabulous ones, Stan and Steve, do the old babyface deal that the babyfaces in the Southern Territories used to do, you know, long ago, is when they'd come out, instead of getting right in the ring, they'd go around the ring and shake hands with all the fans in the front row or kiss the girls or hug the babies or whatever the case may be. And that started to be such a, remember, that was the fight between Steve Keirn and Coco Ware. Because then Coco started doing it because it got over so good. And then Keirn said, hey, that's our fucking deal. And, you know, gimmick infringement, right? But, you know, it brings the people in more. When you've got a guy and he's happy, he's doing whatever. Now, when it's game face and he's coming out for a grudge match, you know, then that's different. It would be out of place. But
what do you think of the visual? And again, I don't know if you could do it today like they did in years past, a different animal, and you have security concerns and everything else, different fan base. But the visual of coming back from commercial they used to have, and in the ring, the heel would be in one corner, the baby face in the other corner with fans all on the floor holding things up for them to sign.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't seen that in so many years. Visually, how do you think that would work today?
Yeah, well, you couldn't do it because of the ring layout, and you'd have to let people around the barricade. See, that was when I first started going to the Louisville Gardens in 1974. They had a rope around the ring, right? About 3 feet out past the apron. That's where you're not supposed to go. But everybody would stand there and take pictures as the babyface walked in, no music, and walked up the steps. And then occasionally they'd reach for something or whatever. And in some places that didn't even have a rope, that's where you see the old pictures of there's 100 kids in the corner of the ring handing the babyface pictures or the program for him to sign with a pencil while he's waiting on the ring introductions. But now, you can't just suddenly say, okay, for the next 3 minutes, everybody that wants to can come inside the fucking barricade. And there's insurance concerns and liability lawsuits. And what if little Pismo slips and falls off the apron and fractures his skull? He's 4 years old. It'll never happen like that again. But the old pictures are cool.
And again, different fan base and, like you said, different layout of the ring. But back to SmackDown.
Do we have to? No, well, real briefly from here on out, Bayley wrestled Tiffy. And the Lucha Heels ate dinner. And Leonardo da Vinci is back. The old third wheel with Gunther and Kaiser. And now he's an egotistical rich guy. And while he had his back turned, taking his jacket off, Apollo Crews rolled him up in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3.
It's one thing to repackage someone, especially someone who really didn't stand out in their role. Like he never spoke and he never smiled, nothing. He was just there. But I think he left Imperium by getting his ass kicked, didn't he? Like Kaiser turned on him and kicked the shit out of him?
Yeah, I believe he did.
They're in the same company. They just repackaged him and now he's smiling. Nothing. Like that's where it's a little weird.
And he got a lot of money.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, that's what it was. While he's been gone, he sued that fucking Kaiser.
He called Stephen P. New.
And that must be why he's got all this money, because he got the big settlement from Stephen P. New. And then he gets beat on his re-debut in 3 seconds. But anyway, okay, some girls argued in the back. They had a triple threat match with Theory versus Waller versus Owens. And, one would think they're building the tension between Theory and Waller or whatever. But this... Hey, it's a three-way, and it's going to be rotten to begin with. But at the bell, and this was the 9 o'clock draw for the ratings, Theory is standing there, and Owens runs and clotheslines Theory, and he takes a hell of a bump upside down over the top rope, right? Fucking Theory. And then Waller is going to charge it at Owens, and Owens is going to sidestep him and chuck him out of the ring, too. And that fucking... Waller looks like a three-legged fucking duck with a hernia. He comes running bent over, and he just ran right past Owens. All Owens had to do was just turn and wave his hand, and he just dove through the ropes on his own. I'm like, fucking hell. And within the first 30 seconds, they were on the floor pulling out a fucking table, so I went to the finish, which was, again, Owens beat Theory with a stunner, for which the bump he took was probably the highlight of the fucking match. And but then they turned around and laid Owens out, the two of them, because they're heels and they do things like that. Should I keep moving and get to LA Knight?
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it, with everybody saying it. So LA Knight was in the ring, and he got a big entrance, and he got the big LA Knight chance, and he got a big pop on the "let me talk to you." And they did all the yes in the right places, and he cut a promo getting himself over or whatever, and then music interrupts, and here comes Carmelo Hayes. And the only good part of this was that when Hayes came out, he walked past a guy holding a sign that said, "What would Mama Cornette say?" Did you see that sign, or that it was tweeted several times?
I did see that. Mama Cornette's getting a lot of mentions on signs at wrestling shows lately, more than you.
Well, because she had more wisdom than I do. See, it's like Walter Brennan and the Guns of Will Sonnet. She was the fastest one of the bunch of us. And Carmelo wanted to be next for the U.S. title. And he bored the people to tears. And then LA Knight bit his head off and got the people back a little bit. And then they played Andre music. And I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, they are really trying to send this thing into the toilet. They send LA Knight out. He's fucking over. They send out Carmelo Hayes. He drags it down. LA Knight tries to snatch it back up, and here comes the promo killer. He had a microphone and tried to speak as slowly as he could, and you still can't fucking and Hayes had to repeat it. So what you're saying to me that blah, 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 right? What the fuck? And then Hayes, who they don't care about, and Andre, who they don't understand, got in an argument over who should get the title match. And it was like fantasy camp with a star doing a promo with a couple of fans who had paid to be there.
I get a kick out of Andrade. I almost called him Andrade because of you. Andrade, whatever his name is.
Well, that's the way you say it. You know, potatoes and potatoes.
I could listen to him read a phone book and be happy. I wouldn't have any idea what he's saying, but there's something very pleasant about the way he says these things. Yeah, I want a tattoo. I don't know what he's saying, but I want
a tattoo. Well, he spoke some Spanish, and then he shoved Carmelo into LA Knight, and LA Knight gave Andrade the BFT, and then he gave Hayes the BFT. And the people like that because not only did they like LA Knight doing his big move, but also they were glad it was over. And then Chelsea wrestled Mia Yim, and then we had the 8-man tag with the Bloodline against the B team. And Jacob Fatu beat up all 4 of them and tagged in Solo, who hit Ford with the spike, I believe a couple times in 1, 2, 3. So basically, whenever they had filled the time in, Jacob Fatu just beat the shit out of all 4 baby faces and set the guy up for him, and boom, and there you go. And Jacob then puts the Ulafala on Solo, and off the air we go. I'm just telling you, this, he's going to be a fucking star for a while. The Samoan werewolf. Werewolf, their wolf.
Well, that was Smackdown.
See if you can hear my notes hitting the floor.
I heard it.
There you go.
Rip them up like you used to.
Well, no, because then, goddammit, I'm saving these in case I'm hauled into court for telling the truth about. I'm starting a file now.
All right, that's a good idea.
I'm keeping all of my notes in case that, because I understand that in some legal proceedings, a lot of documents get requested, and those documents have to be forked over.
Yes, that's true.
And then they're poured through with a fine-tooth comb, and then people read them after that.
It doesn't matter where you are. St. Louis, Beverly Hills, those documents get handed over, and we get to go through all of them.
Doesn't matter where you are. There's a paper trail.
It takes a lot of time, but it's rewarding and fun.
Yes, it's good for you in some cases.
You'll learn a lot of things.
I wonder, yes, and we've learned so many things about the various way that these things work. All right, enough vague illusions, folks. We'd love to tell you, and we're going to one of these days.
And we will, but just not right now.
We will be.
Oh, we will be.
But what do you think the odds are we're going to tell the people? Should they bet on it? I think it's a pretty good bet.
I think it's a safe bet.
We don't know when, but we do know if, and yes, that would be a safe bet. And right now,
the real question is, if you wanted to make a bet that wasn't safe, will there also be a video component to what we release or what we say?
Oh, well, there you go, because some video does exist of some interesting things.
Oh, there is some very interesting video that is ours. We paid for it. So
yes. Quite a pretty penny, too. But anyway, back to what we're getting paid for. If you want to bet on something, the NFL, Brian, National Football League, the NFL, people have heard of it. They play it with a ball known as a pigskin. It's kind of elongated, looks like Stewie Griffin's head. It's not what they call football over across the pond. It's American-style football. And a lot of people bet on these things. Brian, did you know this? The football games from the NFL?
Oh, of course.
There's wagering going on.
I think it's probably the biggest thing, the biggest sport there is in America for people to wager on.
Well, and that some people may still be left out because they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they're doing. They don't think they have the knowledge to crunch the intricate numbers. But you know what? Our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook, they are an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Well, you can bet on simple stuff until you worm your way into experience with these things. You can bet on something simple like is little Joe from Kokomo going to score a touchdown in this game? And if you bet on that and he scores a touchdown, boom goes the dynamite, you win some money. Now, I don't know if perhaps little Joe from Kokomo is going to score a touchdown that day or not. You might lose, but maybe you could find out where little Joe from Kokomo is and go, I don't know, detain a member of his family and say, hey, little Joe from Kokomo, you better score that touchdown or you're never going to see Aunt Gladys again. Something like that. You know, you could play with the odds a little bit that way. Brian, are you in favor of taking Aunt Gladys out behind the shed and tying her up a little bit until little Joe scores that touchdown?
Let's not talk about little Joe. Little Joe giving it away. No, let's talk about the NFL. Let's talk about DraftKings. Let's talk about wagering on the NFL with DraftKings, the best place to bet touchdowns.
I caught you taking a big sip of sustenance there, didn't I?
It's delicious.
Well, you can score big with DraftKings Sportsbook because they're the #1 place to bet on touchdowns. And you can bet on touchdowns all day long at DraftKings Sportsbook if you download that app and use the code JCE because when you bet just $5, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets, and you're going to get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium absolutely free. Now, I'm thinking, so $5 you bet of yours, and you get $250 in bonus bets. Now, that's $255. If you bet, that would be for 50. You could bet on 51 different people in the particular football game that they would make a touchdown, and you'd pretty much have to win there, wouldn't you? Because with $250, you can just go crazy mad and just do all kinds of things.
Well, as we always say, we can't give any suggestions or any thoughts about how people should wager. We could just say that you can wager.
Yes.
Our friends at DraftKings, where they have a crown and they say that it's yours.
Yes, the crown is yours as long as you're, willing to fucking bet some money on it. But that's the thing. If you bet $5, get $250 in bonus bets. I'd spread that around over. How many football players are there in the NFL?
Altogether, I don't know.
Well, maybe you could just bet $1 on 255 different players to score a touchdown on Sunday. And boy, sooner or later, one of those weasels is going to score a touchdown. Anyway, you can do it right now, folks. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook and use the Sportsbook app, or download the book also. It's fine reading. And use the code JCE, and you're going to get $250 in bonus bets and 1 month of NFL Plus Premium when you bet just $5. Of course, if you're a new customer, if you're just bugging them all the time with your bullshit, well, they're not going to give you this deal. Crown's yours, Brian.
The crown is yours. That's right. The crown is yours. And we have a friend of ours who is just arriving right now. He has something to say. Let me let him in the door. Hold on. You have anything you want to say about this man before we before we give him a chance to say something here?
He's the guy with my weed eater because he's right under the window now. Okay, sir, do you have something to say?
Well, hold on. You said there's weed? Let's go to this guy. We'll talk about this in a second.
Weed eater, not dealer.
You got weed dealer?
Weed eater.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Wow, that's a lot of information there. And of course, we hope you all heard it. And you can all use that information when you go to DraftKings. The crown is yours.
And if you didn't retain all of it, next week, have a pad and a pencil ready and take notes. All right, what is going on? Give them some information of your own, Brian. What's going on at the Arcadian Vanguard Network this week?
Another fantastic week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes, of course, the wrestling news. Each and every day, get your wrestling news for free from the Wrestling News, wherever you find your favorite podcast or directly from thewrestlingnews.com. No clickbait, no paywall, just the wrestling news. If you're sick and tired of the conjecture and opinions, check it out. A clear and concise reporting of the events happening in and around the world of professional wrestling. Get it from the Wrestling News.
Brian, I have to ask you, is there a paywall involved?
No paywall. We think the news should be available for everyone for free, and we're going to bring you more about that in the future from the Wrestling News. Want to make mention of Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, the latest episode? One of my favorite guests on the 605 Super Podcast, one of the biggest celebrities I know, Dan Farron, is on the show. Check this out. Here's some great stories about Southern California, Lucha Libre, and so much more. Dan Farron, of course, has one of my favorite stories because he was a regular on the Southern California indie scene, lucha scene, whatever you want to say. He was a referee. He ended up promoting some shows. There was a wrestler that appeared on a WWF taping in like 1993 as Dan Farron wearing a mask. There's a masked wrestler named Dan Farron. It's ridiculous, but the video's out there. And check out Dan on this episode. Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, wherever you find your favorite podcast, or of course, SUAWpod.com. And don't forget about the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! Suzanne's family, the older members, are downstairs. They're going to wonder what's happening. But go through the archive, 605pod.com. The yelling is over. The Mothership, 605pod.com. The Mothership.